Hello and welcome to episode 128 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is January 31st, 2021. Today I'm wearing two special things that are fairly old, and one of the special things about this shawl is that this particular shawl was not knit by me but by a friend. And the reason is that I actually knit this pattern, which is called Comtesse by Birgit Freyer, out of this yarn. And then when I'd finished it, a friend of mine said she liked it very much. She wanted to knit the same for herself. So she ordered the yarn and she ordered the same color. But as it sometimes happens with a different dye lot, her color was, I think it was a bit darker than mine. And she knit the shawl, so we had the exact same shawl, but hers was slightly darker than mine, and I liked her color better, but she preferred my color, so we swapped. So I'm wearing her shawl and she wears mine, but it's the same, exact same pattern, exact same yarn. It's a very thin lace yarn, and the thing about this shawl is that the main body, which is knit in stockinette stitch, is knit with the yarn held double. So this is a bit thicker, but the lace part is knit with one strand of yarn. So this is not only thinner because it's a lace pattern, but also because you only use one strand of yarn, and this is using the yarn held double. So you have this long, thin triangle that you start knitting, and then once that's done, you add this long lace pattern, and then this is the tip of the triangle. I think I probably should block it again. So as you know, lace patterns look a lot nicer after they're blocked, and they do keep their shape for quite some time. But as I said, this I knit my version about 10 years ago, so this is probably also 9 to 10 years old, and I don't really wash my shawls very often, especially if I don't wear them very often because they're so fragile. Oh, by the way, I've worn this before on in a video at some point, but I also made a video where I showed how I fixed this shawl, because some time ago when I wanted to wear it, there were some holes in it. So there was 2 or 3 spots where the yarn had broken because it's such a fine yarn, and I fixed it and I made a video out of it. So if you want to know how to fix your knitting, I have several tutorials which are still only in German, but I am working on translating them into English. So at some point you should be able to watch them in English. But even if you watch them in German, I think a lot of what I'm doing is self-explanatory, so you just look at the video and you'll know what I'm doing. Okay, so that's a shawl, and the jacket, the cardigan I'm wearing is knit out of Noro yarn, which is the Japanese yarn dyer who dyes beautiful yarn. The yarn's called Kirara, and the pattern is called, can't read my own handwriting, I think it's called Vina by Jane Ellison. And I started, it's a jacket that you start at the bottom and you knit up, and if you look at the pattern, it looks completely different to my jacket, except for this pattern that's in the that I did the way it's written. But there it's a short sleeve jacket and it's not as wide, but I completely messed up my gauge. And that's why the jacket grew ever longer, and that's why I decided to knit long sleeves. So this is what the whole jacket looks like. As you can see, it's really, really wide. I changed the needle size at some point to get it in, to bring it in a bit. And then there are some decreases, and then I knit until the armholes. I finished the sleeves, and then I did the top part all in one. Which is not as per pattern. In the pattern she knits it up in pieces, so the colors get even more mixed up, but I thought it was colorful enough the way it is, and I'm not so fond of sewing, so I thought knitting the thing in one piece is a lot easier. and that's what I did. Yeah, love the cardigan. That's about 6 years old. Oh, by the way, especially because it I kept making it longer and longer. It took a long time to knit, especially the front and back. They're so wide, and I knit it really long. It took me over a year to finish the cardigan, but as I keep saying, it's so worth it, because now that it's finished, I can wear it for years and years and years to come. So that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects, and before I dive into this week's or last week's finished objects, just very quickly, these are the socks that I forgot at home last week. The Dubai socks by Mina Phillip out of her ebook Around the World in 8 Socks. As you can see, they're finished, they're done. They're washed now as well. That's why they were at home, because I wanted to wash them. Really happy with them, and now I can wear them. That's nice. So that's that. And then I have 3 finished objects this week, and 2 of those I sort of expected to get done. I mean, usually I sort of know how long things might take me. Sometimes they take longer than I think, but sometimes they're suddenly done, which is quite funny. So one of the projects that sort of got suddenly finished was the wizard's hat I was knitting for my son. And I had done the brim to a point where I thought it might be long enough. And I never got round to talking to him the week before, but last weekend I actually talked to him, and we looked at it, and he said the brim was long enough. So I said I'll just cast off with an I-cord cast off, and then we'll see what it looks like. And I did that, and the first time round I did that, the edge wasn't quite wide enough, so I mean, of course it rolls because it's stockinette, but even if I put it down on the table, I couldn't get it to be as like the widest point of the hat, and it kept pulling in. So I had to undo the whole I-cord and then re-knit the I-cord, and after 4 stitches of casting off, I did 1 row of I-cord without casting off a stitch. I hope you know what I mean. So this is what the hat looks like now. This is the bit where I knit as per pattern. Then I changed the rate of increases. Then I did a bit that's straight. So that was supposed to fit on his head. And this is the brim. And as you can imagine, the whole thing is way too big. I brought this glass head to show you. So this is what the hat looks like at the moment. So not only does the brim flop down, but it's also a bit too big, even on his head. But he found out that if he puts the hat on and then he sort of folds it up on itself like this. See if I can show you. Yeah, so there's a fold in there now. It suddenly works. It means the brim gets a bit smaller, but it's not too bad, and he really likes it that way. And so there's a bit of stuffing in the top of the hat to make it stand up. But this way, the hat fits him. He really likes the way it feels. And we might even leave the brim the way it is now. I haven't put anything into the I-cord yet, and he doesn't want a wire or anything in there because he wants to be able to squish it together and put it in his bag. But what I will do is I will certainly wash the hat, because I wash everything that I knit just to make sure that everything in the yarn that was put there to make it easy to keep and to ship and everything, to get that out, and any residual dye, color or whatever. And I will block the brim to try and help the edge stay straight so it doesn't curl as much. But then maybe we are just going to sew this bit down a little bit. But we're not too sure yet what we're going to do, but it's a finished object. I'm really happy with it, and he can't wait to have the hat for himself and keep it. He was quite surprised when I said yesterday I need it back to show you off on the video today. That was very sweet. So that's the first finished object, and the one that kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't quite, hadn't realized that if the brim's wide enough, it would actually be done fairly quickly. The next finished object is another hat. So I'll just get the glass hat back. And that's the gnome hat. The second gnome hat made out of Westfalen Wolle, the German yarn from German sheep that was produced in Germany, and so on and so forth. I don't even know if she ships anyplace else. I haven't checked that. Yeah, so I had knit. The pattern is by Sarah Shearer. Go Gnome or no, go Big or Go Gnome Hat is what the pattern is called, and it's the second version I've knit. The first one I knit on a smaller needle at a tighter gauge, so the hat was too small for me, but it's a very nice hat. Now this one I knit with a 5mm needle, so the gauge is a lot looser. As you can see, the stitches are quite big, and also I think that at this gauge the combination of the Westfalen Wolle and the opal yarn is not quite as, doesn't work as nicely as with the other one. So with the tighter gauge I thought it was no problem, but with this gauge I feel like it's a bit too loose for the, especially for the opal yarn, because that's a different kind of yarn and it looks different from the Westfalen Wolle in this combination. So this was supposed to be a gauge swatch for a pullover I wanted to knit, because there's a Go Big or Go Gnome pullover that you can knit, and it's supposed to be knit with fingering weight yarn and not this 8-ply or thick yarn that I've been using. So yeah, so gauge swatches are not only to check your gauge, but it's also to see if you like the fabric that you get and if you like the way the yarns play together and so on. So with the first hat, this is a really nice gauge for those yarns to play together, and it's a really nice hat, but I didn't want the pullover at that gauge. And with this hat now, I like the Westfalen Wolle gauge. So this is, I think, the way I would like to knit a pullover for myself, but not in combination with the opal yarn. And because I did not want grey or white, I don't have enough colours from the Westfalen Wolle to knit the gnome pullover in that colours. So I'm not going to knit the gnome pullover with this yarn and this combination. I still want to knit a jumper out of the Westfalen Wolle, and I think what I'm going to do is I will just use the Westfalen Wolle, use their colours, and look for different, just for a different pattern, for a different motif to put into the pullover. And as for the gnome pullover, I'll just use the normal, the fingering weight yarn that's called for, and pick some colours there, and knit it out of that yarn. And I'm not casting on a pullover at the moment anyway, because I'm already knitting 3 garments at the moment. So I've decided that I have to finish one of them first, and then I will either start the Westfalen pullover or the gnome pullover. I'll probably start with the Westfalen pullover because that's more a winter pullover and something that I need right now, or whenever I get to it. We'll see. Yeah, but the hat's finished. It's still a nice hat, and it's taught me a lot about the way the yarns work together, and the gauge, what kind of difference that can make in combining yarns. So that was really interesting. So the third finished object is the Ryokalina Cowl, and that was something I expected because I had finished the knitting on that cowl last week. All I needed to do was sew the one seam, and then the thing would be finished. So last week I sat down and I seamed the strip together along here, and I made a video. The video so far is only out in German, but as I said, I'm working on the translations and I will publish it in English at some point. And then, as you can see, 1/3 is, oh no, now it's half. 1/3 of the strip, but half the cowl is just one layer, and then the front of the cowl, you have those 2 layers on top of each other, and then when you wear it, it sort of falls down like this, and it shows both sides of the pattern. So kind of like this. Yeah, I think when I wear it, it flops over more to this side. I'm going to wear it next week. So next week you can see what this looks like on me. And last week I'd been thinking about knitting another one. Right now I'm not really sure I'm going to do that. I don't really feel like knitting another one. Mainly because I can't choose a color. And I really, really like this one. So maybe I'll do another one. Maybe I'll do it later. Not too sure at the moment. And as we're still doing the other knit along at the moment, I don't feel rushed. I don't have to knit another one. You can still knit and finish your Ryokalina Cowls. And I always keep the discussion threads on the Ravelry group open. So whenever you join, whenever you finish, you can always put your pictures in there. You can ask questions, whatever you like. So that's the Ryokalina Cowl out of Pure Baby Alpaca by Hansa Farm. I haven't washed it yet. I will wash it. I won't block it. I just want it to stay the way it is. So I'll just wash it and lay it flat to dry. And then next week I can wear it. Yeah, that's all the finished objects for this week. Then on finished objects? Yeah, on to works in progress. That's it. I start as usual with my socks. I worked a little bit on the Zakkuri Remix socks. I'm knitting out of Hansa Farm alpaca yarn, sock yarn, held double. So I finished the first one. And I finished the second foot, so I finished the heel, and I've just started the cable pattern. So I've done one cable, but not the other. So the way the cable works is you have one cable here and then one there, and then they switch, and it's like one braid up here and then the next here and so on. And it goes around the leg, the whole leg of the sock. And that's what I need to do now. The yarn's really looking very sorry, but I still trust the numbers I got when I weighed the yarn. So this should be enough to finish the leg of this sock. That's the Zakkuri Remix socks. And the second pair of socks I have on my needles are the Hong Kong socks by Mina Phillip, again out of her ebook Around the World in 8 Socks. This is Opal subscription, Opal abo yarn, and I'm knitting this as part of the pattern battle. So everybody who knits this yarn has to use, or who knits in that, within that knit along, has to use a different pattern. And nobody was knitting Mina Phillips's pattern, so I could choose that. And this is sock number 2. At the moment, it seems like the socks are going to be almost identical. So it could just be like a few rows apart, but I'm not completely sure. But as soon as I get into the blue and green color, I will know how much different the colors will be running in the second sock. Yeah, so started that. I only have 2 socks on the go at the moment. I usually have several socks that I'm working on. I try not to have more than 3. Sometimes it gets to 4 or 5. Sometimes I'm down to only 1 sock, but that doesn't happen too often. At the moment, I have plans for other socks. I was gifted a beautiful sock pattern that I want to try out, but I haven't picked the colors yet. So I'm working on that. And also tomorrow you can start signing up for the Sock Madness of this year. And after participating last year for the first time in my life, I want to do it again. So I will sign up for the Sock Madness, and that was another reason to not cast on too many socks at the moment, because I will not have to, but I will want to knit socks as part of the Sock Madness again. So the way it works, as far as I remember, the whole of February is the time to sign up. There will probably be warm-up patterns, I guess. Last year, I think they had 3 different patterns for the warm-up. I only knit one of those, so I'll see what happens this year. I will try to at least knit 1 pair of warm-up socks, and then in March, the the competition starts, and then I will try and compete and knit as many socks as possible. Oh no, before the competition starts, there's the, I keep forgetting about the qualification socks. So the first pattern that comes out in March will be the qualifier. So we'll have 2 weeks of time to knit that pair. And then once you've qualified, then the first round begins. Yeah, so that's the upcoming sock madness. So much about socks. So the next project I want to show you is the Quadracowl by Martina Behm. And this is a pattern that calls for 2 skeins of yarn. You can use 2 different colors to make it more interesting. And the first color I chose is this beautiful rainbow color. It's another Opal Abo color, subscription color. And the pattern says you can almost use up the whole skein. And I've only used 2/3 at this point. But I think it's big enough for me. So I'm still getting fairly thin stripes, so the colors aren't completely mixed up. And the way this pattern works is that you fold it in half like this, and then this edge is the circumference that the cowl is going to have. And if I hold it together at the back like this, I think this is wide enough for me. I don't want it too wide, I don't want it hanging too deep. And then the height, the height of the cowl is going to be this. So this is the height of the cowl. I think it's quite high. So if I bunch it up to wear it as a cowl, there'll be quite a lot of fabric here, so it should be nice and warm. So the next step that I need to do is to start using the second color and then do this maneuver where the stitches get reordered so that I can knit the second half. Will be another triangle that will sort of fill up this half of the cowl. It's so hard to describe. And then when I wear the cowl, I can turn it round so only this color shows, or I can turn it so that the middle of this square shows, or the middle of the other square, or I can turn it round, and I have no idea how that's going to work, but it's possible to turn it so that I can see the 4 points where this color ends and the other color starts. So amazing. I have no idea how Martina Behm comes up with these ideas and these constructions. It's just amazing. And just a quick reminder, this is my second color. This is one of the rainbow colors by Wolldackel, a German hand dyer. And yeah, I can't wait to see how these colors work together. So that's the Quadracowl. And then on to my garments. I'll start with the Rainbow Cardi by Stephanie Lotven. It's called Rainbow Cardi and it's completely black. But that's because the collar in the front and the front part of the fronts will be in neon rainbow colors, but the cardigan itself is all black. It's the merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm, and still we can't see a lot, but I think it's visible, or you can see that it's grown. So last time maybe I had half of this knit down, and I still have 20 something grams left. So I will finish this yarn into the front and back and just keep knitting straight down. And then once this ball is gone, I will knit the sleeves, then I will finish the front and back, and then finally I can knit all the bright neon colors into the fronts. So that's that cardigan. And then the other two are pullovers. The Raglano by Nicola Susan. I'm knitting out of this rainforest color by Opal in their 6-ply yarn, so it's a bit thicker than the sock weight yarn. And I finished the yoke, and then I finished the first ball of yarn in the front and back. Nothing changed there, but I knit almost a complete sleeve. It's not quite done yet. My arms are short, but not that short. So last week I had just knit down straight, and I knit down to just about the elbow, maybe a bit lower, and then I did do decreases. So at first I was wondering whether I would leave the sleeve the width it is, because it looks fairly small, because the ribbing pulls it in, but it did seem a bit too wide to keep that way, and so I started the decreases. I'm not quite sure why I put the marker where... Oh, I remember. I put the marker here and then it was another 10 rounds. So I probably should move the marker there because this is where I started the decreases. You can see the decreases here. So at first I thought maybe I'll just decrease 8 stitches. So I'm back to my 2x2 rib. But now I've decided I want it even smaller because this is still quite wide, so I'll keep decreasing and I'll decrease another 8 stitches, and that will probably get me to where the sleeve is almost long enough, and then I will have to try it on again and see what the length is like, and then just finish it so that it's long enough, it's not too short. Maybe I'll even knit it a bit longer than usual so I can fold it. I don't know yet. I'll see when I get there. It's one of these many, I'll see when I get there. But that's what I love about knitting and about making your own clothes. You can keep trying them on, you can keep tweaking the pattern until you get exactly what you want. Then the next pullover, oh, it's here. For a moment I thought I forgot to bring it, but no, it's here. It's the Pappus pullover that I'm knitting out of Noro yarn. And again, this Noro yarn looks completely different from what it looked last week. Last week, I think the red and the teal was showing. This week, again, it's the black, grey and brown and a bit of the green. And I have almost finished knitting the sleeves and the upper front. So this is what it looks like at the moment. This is one of the cuffs at the arm. This is one sleeve. And then this is part of the front and back. The upper back is finished. This is the upper front. And then we have the second sleeve and the other cuff. Yeah, so I love it. It's such a nice feeling. It's knit really loosely on 6mm needles. As you can see through the fabric. The colors get all muted because of the black Mohair silk yarn that I'm using. That's also by Hansa Farm. And yeah, even though I have many stitches on the needle, I still get this stripy effect because it's such a long color repeat. And one of the things I'm really interested to see is once I finish the upper front and the sleeves, I will knit the sleeves together on both sides and then knit the front and back in the round. So the stripes will probably get a bit... I kept thinking they will get a lot wider because I'm casting off the sleeves. But I forgot that I knit the front and the back and they're quite wide. So I'll see. Maybe the stripes won't change that dramatically. That's interesting. Never thought about that. So that's interesting. Love knitting. There's always something going on. So where's the mohair yarn? Oh, I dropped it. I'll leave it down there. It's just black mohair. You know what black mohair looks like. Yeah, so that's the third pullover I'm working on. Hope to finish the sleeves this week, so it'll look a lot more like a pullover next time I show you. And then it should be smooth sailing, just knitting in the round downwards and see. And then I can try it on every now and then to see how long I want it. I can see how far the yarn goes because I only have that one ball of Noro yarn, but it's 800 meters, so it should be plenty to finish that pullover. Yeah, so that's that. And then I have a crochet project that I've started. I haven't had any crochet on the needle, so to speak. Do you say on the needle with crochet? I don't know. But I have a pattern that's called Arietis. Arietis? I don't know how you pronounce it. You can check on my Ravelry page. And I've had that pattern for ages. And ever since I found the pattern, I wanted to crochet something to put in my kitchen here in my shop, at the back of my shop, where I have like a little stovetop. Is that what you call it? So it has enough space to put 2 pots on. And I wanted to crochet something to cover that up when I'm not using it, because I'm not using it every day. And people just, or I tend to put things on it. So I wanted to have something nice to put on top to keep it safe and to make it look nice. And when I saw that pattern, I thought that's what I want. And for several years now, I've meant to start that project and I never did. But last week, I finally sat down and decided now is the time to start that project. And the first thing I needed was 5 different colors. So these are the colors of Catania yarn by Schachenmeier. That's the yarn on that shelf over there. And I picked up these 5 colors. So it's a white, it's a dark blue, and it's 3 other blues in between. And I crocheted this square. And I think it's so beautiful. I'm not quite sure if that's called overlay crochet. But basically what it is these are, I think they're called front post double crochets. And then these are triple crochet, I think. I forgot what you call them. But then you crochet down into like 3 rounds below. And you get this beautiful effect. And I love it. And the pattern is almost exactly these colors. And then you can crochet it from dark to light to dark. And then the next square I want to make is going to go from white to dark back to white. And then I can position them with a dark and a light, and a dark and a light, you know what I mean? Like a chessboard or something. And I love it. I must say it's a lot smaller than I thought it would be at first. In the beginning, I had kind of thought I might get away with doing 2, one here and one there, but they're way too small. And then when I started crocheting and I realized it's so small, I thought maybe I can do 4 for each of these spaces. But now I measured it and I actually need 15. So I need 3 for the width and then 5 for the length of the thing. Not quite sure what it's called. But yeah, so at the moment, I'm not quite sure whether I'll stick to these colors and do all 15 in these colors, or maybe I could do 5 in these colors and then 5 in some other colors and then another 5 in some other colors, or maybe I could just do 3 and then choose many, many different color combinations. I don't know. But I love this one. It's a bit fiddly to work in the beginning. It gets easier the further I crocheted. I can't wait to start the opposite color combination, and then I will have to make up my mind whether I stick to these colors or whether I use some other colors. Ari it is, love it. So that's the crochet project, and then we're down to the knit along, and that's my Wolkig. And I put in quite a bit of work last week, so it has grown, I think. This time it's actually visible that it's grown. And so before I started filming, I weighed my leftover yarn. And if you believe it or not, this is still 30 grams. I started off with 50. So this whole thing is just 20 grams of yarn. It's so crazy. And at the moment, my plan is to actually use up as much as possible of this yarn. And that will give me a cowl that when I pull it over my head will be nice and sort of substantial, even though it's so thin. And as you can see, if I pull it width-wise, it sort of shrinks this way. So, and it's such thin yarn. So even if I have twice or 3 times this amount, it won't be too bulky on my neck. But it means that when I pull it this way, you can pull it quite a bit. And so if it is more than twice that length, I can just wear it like a scarf around my neck like this. And then I have just a quick scarf that I can pull around my neck, because sometimes I just get a little cold, and at the moment I just get cold and warm, and I need to take things on and off, put things on and off. So that's the idea I have at the moment. I'll see if I have the patience to do that much knitting. We'll see. So that was everything I wanted to show you this week. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!